Praise God, for the ways in which He has led you and is blessing you, dear friend. Now then, this morning, I was reading in Isaiah that God says our ways are not His ways, nor our thoughts His thoughts. However, each one of us has a desire to serve and follow Him. Now, you mentioned in your talk about being an effective influence in our churches. Very important, if we are to grow. And the trouble is, there's a big trouble. Some people are just not responding. And try as I might, we're against a brick wall. So, what's your advice on this, my friend?
Thanks, Rupert. Thank you for that really easy question. I've got no easy answers for you, Rupert, as I'm sure you're aware. I'm probably not telling you something you've not tried already, but I found the only way to influence is through relationship, and I, as I say, my current area of passion is friendship, and so I've worked with various vicars and leaders over the years within my own local context, and often been a frustrated evangelist. But I think probably the best thing I did with my last vicar was we basically would just meet up. I recognised he was a bit lonely. And so we met up for a cup of tea every Thursday morning with no agenda for about 5 years. And I just became his friend. And again, I didn't do it with an agenda because I wanted to create an evangelistic culture. I was just his friend. And we would go on dog walks and we'd meet in his study and drink cups of tea together. And we tried not to talk about church, just tried to be friends. And then gradually, over those years, he began to ask me what I thought about a few things, and I just began to get his ear a bit more, and that eventually led to kind of doing more evangelistic stuff and creating a bit of culture and saying, can we try this? Can we try this? It all came out of relationships. So I'm sure you're doing that, but that's always, I think, as I said, my current area of passion is just friendship. Someone's got to start the conversation. So for me, I've found the most, for me, both my parents have died. So no one could replace my biological mum and dad. So I've got lots of spiritual parents, and I've felt God really speak to me about that. And so, for example, what a really significant influence in my life at the moment is my dad's old best mate, who we just I text and I hang out with, and I need older voices. I run with someone who's about 10, 15 years older than me very regularly, and just seek advice and chat. But it's friendship. I wouldn't say it's mentoring. I would say it's friendship. And so I think that's the first thing. But I think someone has to take the initiative in those relationships. And so I don't think that it matters whether it's the younger or the older person. Sometimes it can be just, can we have a coffee? Can we have food together? And so I wonder whether one of the things that, if you are passionate about intergenerational friendship and feel it's something God's calling you to do, just say, Lord, who are you calling me to spend time with? Is there a younger couple? Is there a younger person within the church family? And could you just say, do you want to come around for dinner? And I don't know. I'd be surprised if they said no. Who doesn't like free food? And food is a wonderful catalyst to make that happen. Then with under 18s, I think there has to be a more safe approach. But I think the best approach I've come across is, I guess, with a combination of church leader and youth worker, if there is someone, or whoever who's responsible for young people. And one of the best things we ever did was, you have like Christian aid charities have like this kind of sponsor a young person thing, where you kind of can sponsor someone in a foreign country and you get a photo and a profile and you give money monthly, that kind of thing. We did a sponsor a young person thing within our church to connect older and younger generations. So we, with the youth worker and the vicar, agreed that we were going to do this, came up with the safeguarding stuff around it. And what happened is that we got profiles of older people and younger people, photo, favourite food, how old, how long you've been a Christian, all that kind of stuff. And we swapped these profiles. We actually mixed them up. And so the younger person got a photo and a bit of description of an older person, and an older person got a photo and description of a younger person. And here was the deal. The deal was that the younger person had to say hello to the older person whenever they saw them in church. That was their commitment. But that would often lead to conversation. The older person had to pray for the younger person and give £1 a month to help that younger person go on a Christian holiday in the summer. And that was the best thing we ever did to connect to younger and old. And actually now there are still You know, some of those young people are now into their 20s and 30s and still have friendship with the person who once upon a time got a bit of photo with, got a bit of paper with their photo on. So yeah, just some practical stuff. That's what we do.
I love that. We really feel God's given us a massive passion as Faith United Life to find these intergenerational things that are working, and we kind of, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to kind of find some of those practical things, and part of it's a struggle because it's not happening, and part of it's a struggle because it is happening, but people don't think it's that big a deal. So what you've just said, it's like, it wasn't a big deal. That's massive. And I think so many of our churches would have done nothing like that, and that would be incredible to see something like that. It'd be absolutely amazing.
But let me reiterate. The research, the latest research on what helps 20-somethings still follow Jesus and be going for it in their 20s, a key factor is having older Christians involved in their life. Don't underestimate that.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk so often about the guide. You know, you've been up these mountains that these guys are just about to face, or working up themselves, and they need the guides. They need someone to keep them going and help them to slow down when they're going too fast, and all those sorts of things. Amazing. Any other questions that we've got from people? Because I could ask Phil questions all day. So I will.
Sorry, I just.
Oh, go on.
Oh, yeah. If that's all right.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, sorry. Ari, the safeguarding issue. One of our church champions has asked, as church officials or workers, we are disclosed to work with vulnerable adults. The oversight of the church needs to know what we're doing for our safety and protection also. Almost as if there needs to be permission from the church leaders for what is going on. Do you agree? Even if I think also potentially, although there might not be governmental safeguarding, that we need internal safeguarding. I think that's correct.
I'm not a safeguarding specialist, but I do know there is a category of vulnerable adults. But I guess what I'm talking about is those who aren't vulnerable, which would be, I guess, most people within our churches. For the vulnerable adults, I would talk to a specialist in that area, and I'm not that.
Yeah, and I would say, yes, tell your church leader. Like, let's make sure your church leader knows what's going on and sits there going, this champion in my church has just told me about that. That's a great idea. And you know, absolutely involve your church leader at every stage. Like we firmly believe everything goes through the life of the local church. Not that the church leaders are perfect. Bless them. They're, you know, some people are born leaders, but all leaders are born people. And we need to pray for them, love them, and support them. But let's engage them. Let's let them know what's going on. I do think that's really important. Jill, did you have a question?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Hi. Thank you for all that you've said already. My husband and I have a group called Seniors at Lunch Together, SALT. So you are the salt of the earth. And we're hoping to start a light group, living in God's hope together. You're the light of the world. But what we want to know is, we're hoping to start this after Christmas, and we've looked at, obviously we're going to hopefully pray that some of these people will come to the light group, but we've looked at Alpha, and we've done Alpha in prisons and wherever, but we don't think that perhaps the Alpha is suitable. Does anybody know of anything better than Alpha for older people? Or do you think Alpha's appropriate for older people?
Yeah, a couple of suggestions. I think the first is that for me, Alpha's great because, but really the kind of the content is less important than the environment. I think I think for me, Alpha, if I were to write a course for exploring Christianity, it probably wouldn't look like Alpha. But the format would look like Alpha in the sense that you get people in a room, you talk about Jesus, we have a discussion, we have some food, and people encounter Jesus. I think the secret sauce is actually the format rather than the content. The other thing that we found works really well is the well-being journey, which I think does work for all ages. So, and while the reason I love that is, I think in our current context where well-being is a really good conversation, everyone's thinking about well-being. So we ran the well-being journey, and the invitation was, do you want to come along and talk about well-being for 8 weeks? And what the course does is it looks at financial well-being, physical well-being, spiritual well-being, mental well-being, vocational well-being. It's and it's videos like Alpha, but again, there's discussion questions, and it's really evangelistic as well. And so those two things, we're running Alpha in January, but we also love the Wellbeing Journey just because it's the easiest evangelistic invite. You're not saying to people, do you want to come and explore the meaning of life? Do you want to say, do you want to come and explore well-being from a Christian perspective? And that's loads easier.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great. Thank you.
There's some great suggestions here as well. I'll just go through some of the comments. Just started a home communion team for older people unable to visit. So we'll all be authorised by PCC and DBS checked. Brilliant. Ticking our boxes there, which is excellent. Bible Reading Fellowship has resources for older people. Actually, BRF has some amazing resources that I've seen recently. We're going to promote those. In fact, I sent them to Adsum the other day. So we'll send those out in the email that follow this as well, because they've got some great stuff that's just come out. Sarah's saying have a joint lunch coming this Sunday between our 20s and my thing's this week. Oh, there we go. 20s and 30s group and our Faith in Later Life group. Brilliant. Did this before pre-pandemic, and natural friendships have sprung up from the simple introductions and conversations, more discipleship focused, that we also hope and pray it will become more evangelistic in time as these relationships develop. Love that. That's absolutely fantastic. Faith Explored marriage course is a good refresher. There, love the wellbeing course. LICC offers some good courses too. We're meeting with LICC later this month to look at some things we can do together. And we hold monthly meetings for friendship and fun with a short talk on Christianity given by one of the group. They keep coming. We've also used Hope Explored for various ages. That has worked as well. Brilliant. And Kate's got a Bible study in 4 minutes. Please don't apologize for a Bible study in 4 minutes, Kate. In the last couple of minutes, Phil, I want to ask you one really simple, really difficult question, which is the gospel that we proclaim, right? So often I think, because the gospel that transformed my life was a transactional gospel. Okay, it was your mess put on the cross, Jesus paid the price, and I get freedom. Amazing heart of the gospel, love it. But what happened was, then it was like after the event I get introduced to this thing called mission, and it's like it was almost like I was invited around someone's house for a meal and they said, oh, by the way, can you do the washing up? It was like this add-on that wasn't part of the original pitch, and I don't think that's like, I've been mulling this over actually, because the gospel is about joining Jesus on mission. It is like at its heartbeat, isn't it? So how do you start to communicate the breadth of the gospel? Do you focus on a transactional piece, or does it depend on the individual, or is there a way that we can start to present the gospel more missionally, so it's part of stepping into something together rather than being saved by something myself? Does that make sense?
And you want me to do that in 2 minutes?
A minute and a half now, actually.
Right, fine. Yeah. So I mean, I think the short answer is it depends. I think, and that's, you know, that's why you should buy the book, because that will help you. But the reason it depends on the person. So I think sharing the gospel relationally depends on listening to their story and where they're at. And so I think the beauty of the gospel of Jesus Christ is, yes, it can be the transactional gospel you described might be good news, might be the way of communicating good news to some people. But I love the image of a diamond when you think of the gospel and you kind of turn it. It's got different sides, different shades. And so for example, with my mate who I'm meeting with Bible studies in the morning, 6:30. What we're doing is at the moment we're reading a book around busyness, because he is a slave to the system. He's a slave to his business. So the good news for him is that Jesus says, slow down, enter the rhythms of grace. And of course, the aspect of us being sinners and broken, and Jesus dying for us and rising again so we can be free and know real life and forgiveness for our past, his presence in our present, hope for the future. Of course, all that's part of it, but it depends on the angle through which we're going in. And of course, part of that is come and join the adventure and be part of the family. But I think it just depends, because I think everyone's different, and Jesus didn't have the reason when Jesus talked to people about who he was, and we have so many I am sayings and everything else, is he turned the diamond of what the good news in the kingdom looked like and chose to invite people in. But that's why it begins with listening, which is why you need to read chapter 8